Well, great news today in regards to the goings on in the Middle East. We have received word that a 2-week ceasefire has been reached by Trump and the Iranians. So that's great news, because if any of you have been paying attention, maybe we won't say that it looked like we had the potential for nuclear conflict this weekend, although you could definitely make that argument. You could at least say that we were looking at down the barrel of a huge escalation if we did not reach the ceasefire agreement today. So that's great. That's good news. But if you watch the news, if you pay attention, you may have heard a little thing or two about Israel's actions today, post-ceasefire, where they are just bombing the ever-loving hell out of Lebanon. Now, that would be fair enough if we were talking about a totally separate militant group that is attacking Israel. But the argument that they've been making, and people like Trump's administration have been making the entire time, is that all these terror tentacles, Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda and like all these different groups, these militias that are hidden all throughout different countries in the Middle East, they all are just arms of Iran. So to call a ceasefire with Iran means to call a ceasefire with their terror proxies, if that's, what we're claiming is what happened, which is what they're claiming has happened. So one must ask yourself, why then is Israel continuing to just bomb the hell out of Lebanon, even though we've reached a ceasefire agreement? And an important caveat here is, when we announced that boots may potentially go on the ground in Iran, when we were floating that idea, Israel came out and announced that no troops from Israel would back the U.S. if a ground invasion took place in Iran. The reason for that is because they're already trying to take all the land that they can in Lebanon. But we were told no help will come if you guys go and put boots on the ground in Iran. So it's our call. We get to make the decision. We get to make the decision anyways for a lot of different reasons. But also, they're not being a rational, reasonable, good ally in this conflict. So their opinion on how we proceed with peace doesn't matter at all. It's a complete non-question. And it's always been a non-question. In reality, we've imposed this strange yoke upon ourselves where our decision making is for some reason being like translated through this lens of other people's needs and wants, as well as America's needs and wants, which is a strange thing for a country's government to do anyways. But all of that to say, Israel does not want peace. Israel wants war. That's what all of this has been. And the philosophy that leads us to that place is this one that I'm about to show you, from none other than our good friend Benjamin Netanyahu himself.
Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan, because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation. So you have no choice. If you look at the world as it is today, you have to be blind not to see that the democracies led by the United States have to reassert their will to defend themselves and to oppose their enemies in time while there's still time, before the jarring gong of danger wakes them up and wakes them up too late. This is where we are now. The fact that people don't see that, the fact that a lot of the news media are harking on a lot of fake news, but also a lot of short-sightedness. They do not see the historic period and the historic struggle that we are engaged in now. Doesn't obviate these truths.
So there's a lot to say about that.
Your father
First off, Genghis Khan is in hell. Jesus Christ rose from the dead. So what are we equivocating here? Because this is something that people have to understand for my non-religious friends that might watch this. The reason that people say that Israel is our greatest ally is because they share a culture with us. That's the theory, right? They are the father culture to our nascent culture that grew out of the book that was handed on to us by the Hebrews. So the idea is that our cultures really jive. They really go well together. And through that unity, we have created the West. That's the theory, right? That the Hebrew Bible, along with Western power, values, economic systems, those things created the West. Now, this is a proposition that I think has gone completely unchallenged for my entire lifetime, way beyond that as well. And for relatively decent reasons. We're post-Holocaust, so everybody appeals to, especially in the world that we live in today, everybody appeals to victims as the people who deserve the most attention, deserve the most service, right? Deserve the most recompense, you could say. And so Jewish people have been very high on that hierarchy post-World War II. As they should be, fair enough. Holocaust is pretty crazy. What we then get out of that, along with, really bad Christian theology, and that's a whole different can of worms for a whole different video, we reached a point where it was synonymous to say Judeo-Christian. That was not seen as any kind of controversy or overlap that was negative. It was all positive overlap. And the more that you, take them at their word, you realize Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't respect Christ. There is not an ounce of respect in that comment that he made. Genghis Khan is in hell. Jesus Christ rose from the dead. He conquered death so that you and I might live forever. Genghis Khan is burning in hell. I don't think there's any way for someone who has even a mild conception of what Christianity is. Nobody, like, for example, my older brother Andrew. All of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with Andrew. And Andrew's a very smart guy. He knows a lot about Christianity. He knows the Bible. And, obviously, I would say he doesn't understand it perfectly because he's not a Christian. But he's got a relatively decent base of knowledge, if you will. And so my brother, when speaking to someone like me or someone who subscribes to my faith, would understand the absurdity of a statement like that to someone like me. Now, as a secular, as a different kind of religion, maybe you hear something like that and, it's not that scandalous or not that big of a deal or probably true if you think about the world in that kind of way. But he understands my worldview. And he knows that saying something like that to me wouldn't convince me of his argument or create space for him where it's like an agree to disagree situation. What Benjamin Netanyahu said is blasphemy. It is blasphemy at the highest degree, because what he is saying is that Christ does not have ultimate power, that Christ's power is void in the material realm, and strength, power, grit, those are the things that define good, that push good beyond the limit of evil. Because it may have been easy to miss in all of the crazy shit that he said there, but we are being told that evil can overcome good by Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, not only, even if you dig into the Hebrew scriptures, is that theologically tenuous and really blasphemous, stupid, illiterate. In the Christian faith, that is beyond blasphemous, beyond illiterate, beyond having any kind of reference point or understanding of what it is that the people that follow Christ actually believe. I say all of this to make this point. Benjamin Netanyahu does not respect your religion. He does not love your God. He is not a child of Abraham. And the government that is currently ruling Israel is a secular government. It is not a theocracy. It is not the kingdom of David being reestablished. It is a government of human beings who do not believe in the power of Christ. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to do this, but in the moment of that, I just felt convicted, so I'm going to need to bring it back. So, with all of that in mind, this kind of secular, Jesus is not all-powerful. The world, the material world, is ruled by power and might, not by forgiveness and love. And that's what our allies believe, not our enemies. You would think I'm describing our enemies when I'm speaking that kind of language. That is what our allies believe. And now here's what our president believes. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, Trump's not a Christian. Oh my gosh, MAGA isn't Christian. I'm not trying to be like, oh my gosh, your guys' political movement is so anti-Christian and y'all are going to hell. It's not about that, right? It's not about that. Just in the context of what I just read you, listen to these words, and please forgive me because there's profanity, but listen to these words in the context of what I just said, and tell me that these do not flow together perfectly. Perfectly. Today will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. And for any of you that didn't see that, there you go. There's the Truth Social post. This is not a man who is relying in the truth of Christ to make decisions. This is a man who is ensconced in a group of people who believe that Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. This is all the evangelicals that are within his cabinet. These are all the people that are within his cabinet that aren't directly affiliated with like church power. So I mean Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth and all of these creeps. This is how all of them operate. They will say whatever they need to say to convince you that they have some semblance of a relationship with the truth. And by the truth, I mean Christ. But when the rubber meets the road, when the shit hits the proverbial fan, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. That is the world that these people operate in. And the danger, the reason that I'm talking about this is not to say, oh, Trump bad, oh, Republicans bad, Jews, Benjamin Netanyahu. It's not that. The point that I'm trying to make is we as Christians, we as believers in the ultimate, the penultimate, outside of time and space, cosmic, eternal truth of Christ, we cannot allow our Christianity to be tainted by people who do not believe in Christ. If I am going to bat, if I am going to war for people who say Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan, I am making a fundamental mistake. Now, I know it's pretty political, so if anybody disagrees with me, if anybody wants to let me, my liberal, Muslim-loving liberal, if you got anything like that, give it to me. Let me know. I promise you, I will be able to hold my own. And if you found this challenging in any way, as always, please reach out. This is something that I'm working through currently myself as well. Our faith, Our lives are to be defined by the life of Christ. Read that tweet from Donald Trump and tell me that that is reflecting the life of Christ. And again, I'm not telling you hate Donald Trump, rail against Donald Trump. I'm telling you, take people at their word when they speak. Believe them. And when they tell you that your views, that your faith, that the way that you experience the world is ignorant, is not living in reality, that person is not your ally. They are not your brother in Christ. And whatever it is that they're trying to convince you to do, you should probably say no. God bless. Much love. Praise be to Allah.